Hi, thank you for joining me for this episode. And this is going to be the first in a series of episodes on the subject and problem of anxiety. Anxiety is probably a more common problem for people than just about anything else that I see in my private practice or that I get feedback from with people whenever I'm just talking. Anxiety is a normal human response to situations. We all have to deal with anxiety, but there are different levels and degrees of it for different people. And some people find that their anxiety is so debilitating that they can't do the things that they want to do, and their life is really inhibited or bothered by it. So I want to do a series of teachings on how to overcome your anxiety. And in this first teaching, I want to just talk a little bit about what anxiety is, why we experience it, and really look at the overall general structure of anxiety. My goal is to be able to give you a big picture of what anxiety is and why we all suffer from it at times. Now, the great psychoanalyst Fritz Perls made a statement. He said that all anxiety is excitement that has been repressed. And I think that's absolutely true. And Perls goes on and recommends for people who are struggling or suffering from anxiety that they ask themselves the question, what is it in this situation that I'm actually excited about? And you'll find more often than not that there is a level of excitement that is being inhibited or being repressed, and that is really oftentimes the root cause of anxiety. And by being honest with ourselves, we can overcome so many problems. So many problems in our lives are because our lives are not shaping up the way we want them to be. And so we tell ourselves lies about our lives or lies about ourselves in order to make life more tolerable for us. So let's talk about what anxiety is. Anxiety anxiety operates on every level of our being. There is the spiritual level, there is then the mental level, and in the mental level, I'm also including the emotions. So in the mental level, I'm talking about the thoughts that you think cognitively, the words that go on in your mind, but I'm also talking about the mental movies that you're playing and the feelings that you're having, which brings you then into the physical dimension of your life, because every feeling, every emotion that you experience is the result of some sort of chemical cocktail that your brain is sending into your body that's generating the feelings and the emotions that you're having. So let's talk about the spiritual components of anxiety. And by spiritual, here's what I mean. We all came into this world with a life power, with an innate life power, a life that needs to be expressed. Some people think of that as our soul code or the agreements that we made before we came into this world. But the truth is, we all came into this world, this three-dimensional reality, in order to manifest ourselves. And that's where we get into trouble. But there is a power, an energy. Some people call it the life power or the life force. Some people may choose to see it as just instinctual drives that we have that are pushing us outward, something from within that is pushing us or driving us outward into some form of expression in this three-dimensional world. And that life power and energy is exactly what it says. It's life power. It's what keeps us alive and keeps us driving and keeps us going forward. Now, if you think about a child, they are full of life power and they have yet to really be programmed by the world around them or by their experiences. And one of the things that you'll notice about children is that they have no problem getting excited. They get excited about all kinds of different things. And as a general rule, they're not overly inhibited in the expression of that excitement. Think about a child on Christmas Eve, before Christmas, before their birthday, before some special event, sometimes even before a movie comes out or something that they're looking forward to. They want to go out and express themselves. They want to go out and live life. And the energy that's pushing them is an energy of excitement, it's an energy of play, and it's an energy of fun. And anxiety causes us to lose all of that. In fact, it is the loss of that excitement, it is the loss of that sense of adventure and play and fun that is the root cause of anxiety. So you can look at that life power, that instinctual desire for expression as the spiritual component of anxiety. Now, if it can move through, if that life power and that emotion or that instinctual drive or that desire to manifest our authentic self and our essence in this three-dimensional world has to then move through the mental programming that we have. It has to move through our thinking, through our emotions, and ultimately through the skill sets and the behaviors that we manifest, the actions that we take in this 3D world of manifestation. And when you have good alignment and healthy alignment between your desire and your instincts and your passions, the life power, the excitement, or the spirit, and you have alignment with your thought patterns that are supporting that, that are telling you, you can do this, you can have this is going to be fun, let's make this playful and adventurous. If you have those kind of thought patterns, it's not inhibited. It's able to move through it. And then if you have the emotions that sustain sustain that energy and keep it positive for you, then that will ultimately move you to action. And then if you have the right actions, you take the right actions, you have the right skill set in this 3D world to support those desires, then you can actualize those desires and you get feedback from life then that is satisfying or that is consistent and congruent with the life that you want to manifest. So where does anxiety come in? Anxiety comes in when mentally, emotionally, in our minds basically, we have messages that are not supporting that. We're experiencing fear. We're afraid of pain. And so we're experiencing that sense of this is going to be a fight, this is going to be a battle, or this is something that I need to avoid. Either this is something I need to overcome because of the opposition, or it's something I need to avoid altogether because it's going to be too painful to engage. So that oftentimes is the emotional component that then blocks or clogs up that excitement or that manifestation of life power. And then we have different thoughts and beliefs like maybe I'm not capable, I'm not good enough, this is going to be terrible. And those thought patterns then begin to support non-manifestation and non-expression of your life rather than the full, congruent, flowing, and power of living a life that's truly satisfied, that's truly satisfying, and lived from the inside out. So let me give you an example of this. Let's talk about social anxiety. Just about everybody has some level of social anxiety. And the reason that that's something that we can all relate to is because I believe that we are in this world to connect with other people, that it is a basic human need to have healthy relationships and healthy connection with other human beings, that we all want to receive acceptance and love and honor within the community of friends and companions and family, the various different social contexts that we find ourselves in. So that is a life energy that from the time you're born until the time you die is going to be pushing from inside you because it's a basic need in order for you to be able to find satisfaction, health, and expression in your life. So that's a life force that's always going to be there. So where does social anxiety come from? Social anxiety comes from the mind and the mental processes that have responded to the experiences that we've had throughout our life. So let's say that you're born into a family that's not emotionally safe, or maybe even not physically safe. Maybe it's abusive, or maybe it's not abusive, but there are certain aspects of your authentic self that your family somehow negated the expression of those things. And so some of those early interactions were not positive for you. In fact, they were quite the opposite. They were painful for you. And you responded to that pain. We're naturally wired to not pursue pain, to avoid pain and pursue pleasure. And so if you try to express yourself in a social context and you experience the pain of rejection, you experience the pain of negation, maybe in the family you experience the actual physical pain of punishment or abuse or whatever the case may be, or you experience traumas, then you begin to associate that urge for that expression with the pain. And then here comes the emotion or the feeling of fear that says, this isn't safe for me, this isn't a good place for me to go. And that becomes sort of locked into your psyche, if you will. And then your thoughts can begin to comment on that experience and say, wow, that really isn't okay. There's something wrong with me. I don't have the power to do this. I'm not capable. I'm not smart enough. I'm not entertaining enough. I'm not likable enough. And then those thought patterns repetitively become beliefs that your subconscious accepts. And so when you become let's back up. Let's don't go to adulthood, because it's not just in family that we experience ourselves. Let's say then we start school and we start trying to move out in various different expressions of ourselves, and we find not acceptance from our peers. We get laughed at, we get made fun of, we get bullied. Again, we're layering these experiences of emotional pain on top of our social experiences. And then out of that pain and out of our reflecting upon that pain and our thinking about that pain, we begin to tell ourselves things like people aren't safe, people don't like me, I'm not a likable person, I'm not a good looking person, I'm not an acceptable person. And that becomes part of our thought pattern. So now every time that energy that wants to manifest itself in a social context, every time that energy comes to the surface, it gets blocked by the emotion of fear, and it gets blocked by those thought patterns that have been woven into our minds, messages that we've internalized about ourselves and about other people. And we begin to react to that and begin to respond to that and think, oh my God, this isn't safe. This is going to be terrible for me. This is going to be painful for me. I'm going to experience rejection all over again. And if that need to express ourselves would just go away, that instinctual drive, that spiritual component, that energy and life force that is pushing us, if it would go away, we wouldn't experience anxiety at all. We would just accept that's our reality and we'd learn to cope. So whenever there's anxiety, it's because there's something in our life that is crying out, something deep within us that is crying out to find satisfaction and manifestation within the context that we are feeling anxious about. A lot of people can be anxious about death. They can have all kinds of crazy fears, maybe fears about germs and getting sick and those kinds of things. And so they inhibit their lives by the contact that they have with people or places that they go, or they're washing their hands all the time. Those kinds of things, avoiding situations, because again, that life power has a need to extend, a need to continue existing. And so that fear of our life being hindered because we're not healthy or ended because we're sick then prevents that life expression. But the need for that life expression doesn't go away, so the anxiety doesn't go away. So you see kind of how that works. So what happens when you become an adult? So when you become an adult and you're feeling anxiety, the first thing you have to recognize is that in that anxiety, there is a desire. In that anxiety, there is an excitement. In that anxiety is an innate need, an inescapable need to manifest and actualize something in this three-dimensional environment. But if you feel like you don't have the resources within yourself mentally and emotionally, you don't have the ego strength to push forward into that situation, or you don't have the skill set, the right behaviors, the right knowledge, the right skills to cause what you're wanting to manifest for you in your life, then that drive and that need becomes bottled up, and we experience that bottled upness, if you will, as anxiety. And so one of the answers, excuse me, one of the answers or one of the keys to being able to get free from anxiety is to realize the only reason that I'm feeling this is because up until this point, I have been lacking the necessary internal support and the necessary skill set to know how to manifest these desires in a successful and effective and satisfying way in this three-dimensional world. So let's go back to social anxiety. Let's say that you're an adult and you find yourself, you're single, and you find yourself wanting to find a partner, but the romantic side of life is scary for you. And probably if you took an inventory of your life, various different situations in your life where you tried to express yourself romantically did not go well for you. Let's say that you tried to ask someone out on a date and you experienced rejection. For some of us, it can go all the way back to those middle school dances, maybe, where we asked the person we had a crush on, we asked them to dance, and they turned us down, and we experienced this rejection. And we internalize that emotional experience with messages like, oh, wow, I must be unacceptable. I must not be good looking. I must be goofy, whatever. And that becomes part of our thought pattern. And then that carries over with us and we bring that into our adult life. For a lot of people, they went so long or had so many experiences with people that they never developed the people skills to know how to effectively connect with people. So they're afraid to go to parties or afraid to go to situations where they don't know people because they don't know how to break the ice, and they're afraid they're just going to sit there and feel like the wallflower, and they don't want to feel like the wallflower. So to avoid that experience out of their anxiety, they say no to those opportunities when deep inside their spirit there's a yes. So they get invited to a party and that life energy gets stirred up and says, yes, I want to do that. Yes, I want to connect. But then it has to move through the soul. It has to move through the mind, will, and emotions. And the mind, will, and emotions are clogged up with all these beliefs and thoughts and feelings that you've experienced about yourself. And because you never put yourself out there, you haven't developed the skill set to know how to break the ice and to know how to connect. Or maybe you have a skill set to know how to break the ice, but you don't know where to go from there. I know how to get somebody to say hi to me. I know how to ask them how their day was and kind of break the ice, but I don't know how to move the conversation along from small talk to something that's a little bit deeper, like things that we might have in common that we like, or thoughts and opinions, and certainly don't know how to get into any level of intimacy with people, of sharing secrets and really sharing myself transparently and self-disclosing. I just never developed any of those skill sets. So every social experience, or excuse me, every social opportunity that I have, then I end up feeling anxious about. Because I feel anxious about them, I avoid them or I stay away from them. So to sum it up, if we could just accept that we're feeling anxious because we really want something, if we can be honest with ourselves on that level, and then take it to another level of honesty and say, I honestly want this, but I don't know how to get this. I don't know how to get this in a way that isn't painful, or even that's successful in a way that I don't experience failure. But I want to learn to develop the skill set to manifest in this 3D world. I want to learn to develop the knowledge to manifest in this 3D world what my spirit is crying out for. Then you can make progress against the anxiety. I think the second thing that's important to realize is that just because something feels true doesn't mean that it is true. If you're a worrier, if you think about it, most of the stuff you worry about is a projection of some future event that you're afraid is going to happen. And if we're honest with ourselves, we need to realize that our worrier is not very good at fortune telling. Our worrier is not very good at predicting the future. Now, but what I mean by that is just keep track of how many things you worry about that never happen. And then you can begin to realize that isn't a very accurate guidance system. Now, maybe you worry about stuff because you've experienced something over and over again. And maybe it's true if you move in this dimension. If I go to a party, I am going to be a wallflower. And you go to the wallflower. You go to the party and you experience yourself in that context as a wallflower over and over again. So you know that's what's going to happen the next time. Please realize that it's not because, the party got together before you came and said, Aaron's coming to the party. Let's make sure nobody talks to him. Okay, yeah, right. Okay, yeah, we're not going to talk to him, right? Like that didn't happen. It's because I keep applying the same skill set that isn't working for me in the situation without giving myself the freedom to try out something else. So one of the things that can help break us out of this pattern is to realize that there is no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. That mistakes are an inevitable part of life, and very inevitable in developing different skill sets in different areas. And if we can just chill out on ourselves and say, you know what, I'm going to make mistakes. It's how I learn. And we see those mistakes as learning opportunities, then they become stepping stones rather than barriers for us to negotiate. In other words, I can step back from a situation and say, well, that didn't go well. And instead of internalizing it and saying, well, life must be against me, I must not just be one of those lucky people, I guess I just don't measure up, make it all about me, like there's something intrinsically wrong with me, I can break it down and say, the behaviors, the words, the actions that I took in this 3D world in this particular circumstance did not work well for me. Was there a different way that I could approach it? Maybe the next time I'm presented with a similar set of circumstances and opportunities, I can approach it in a different way and I can apply a different skill set. Then you might begin to look and say, who do I know who's effective in this area? Who do I know that just gets around at parties, it doesn't worry about people, and is able to connect really well with people? And you can start observing that person. How do they interact? Maybe if you've got a good enough relationship and they're willing, maybe they would give you some pointers. Maybe they would help you. Worst case scenario, you could get on YouTube and you'd probably find videos that would help you break the ice, that would help you move from ice-breaking type of conversation. Hi, my name's Aaron. How are you? Where are you from? To deeper levels of conversation where you begin to talk about mutual likes and finding things that you have in common so that you create an enjoyable experience both for yourself and for the other person. And as you begin to develop that skill set, you'll begin to create an avenue where that life power can bypass the old programming and can find a channel through which that river of life power can flow into actualization, and you can begin to overcome your anxiety. Now, I know this is very general and this is very oversimplified. I'm going to do a lot of different videos on this and talk about ways that you can manage the emotional part of this, and you can build up the mental and emotional resources before you even go to take action, so that you feel supported internally in the event that you do make mistakes and have opportunities to learn and to grow. So if you think this will be helpful to someone else, I hope you'll tell them about this video, tell them about this series. I hope you'll share it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd love to have you do that. So if you could just hit the subscribe button, maybe hit the bell next to it, so it'll alert you when new videos come out. And go ahead and like and comment on the video. I'd appreciate the feedback. Again, this is Tomlinson, and I hope wherever you are right now that it's great.